It has started recording.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Thank you all for joining us on this meeting today. We have a lot of important things to discuss. So Sam, can you confirm a quorum?
Yes, we have a quorum and the press have been notified.
Okay, good. I hope everyone has had a chance to look at the minutes from August 28th. If anybody has any questions or additions, please let me know. If not, I'll entertain a motion that they be approved.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and have a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Okay. So the next order of business, Barry Knopfsinger was going to talk about the report of action and recommendations of Finance Committee. And Tracy, I think you're going to do that now in Barry's absence. So we'll turn it right over to you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, everyone. Barry indicated that he will be joining very shortly, but for now, I will provide the report out from the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee of Kentucky Housing Corporation Board of Directors met virtually at 1 p.m. on Friday, September 26, 2025. Myself, as Chief Financial Officer, led the meeting by presenting a report on mortgage activity for fiscal year 2025. At the end of the year, $304 million in mortgages were financed using bond proceeds as a result of 3 bond issuances over the course of the fiscal year. Additionally, I highlighted the secondary market trading results for the fiscal year. Approximately $288 million in mortgages were financed through the TBA market, resulting in approximately $3.8 million in trading gains. That is down from $4.6 million in fiscal 24 and $6.4 million in fiscal 23. As I've explained in prior meetings, the mortgage market continues to experience volatility with wavering investor demand. Investors are fearful that loans with higher interest rates will prepay once rates come down. So they're no longer paying a premium for those loans, yet we are still making a profit on the secondary market. I then presented a summary schedule on the single family portfolio, reflecting a $280 million increase. Sorry. My phone's ringing. A $280 million increase in overall principal balance from fiscal 2024 to fiscal 2025, which resulted in a $3.5 billion loan portfolio at fiscal year end. As a result of adding the MRB program and fairly low payoffs, we added just under 1,000 loans to the portfolio last year. So some pretty good news there. I also presented a schedule of loan delinquencies. The year ended with a delinquency ratio of 3.65%, down from 4.17% in 2024. Management feels this ratio is very strong given the current economic environment and commends the mortgage servicing staff on their efforts to maintain such a low delinquency ratio. The foreclosure ratio of 9.97% is up a little bit from last year. I advise that management is keeping an eye on this as many COVID-related relief programs and more lenient loss mitigation requirements have recently phased out. And then finally, I advised that although the TBA program continues to generate some profit, we've determined that issuing single-family mortgage revenue bonds will continue to provide additional funding to support the single-family mortgage program. A $75 million bond issuance took place in September, which closed earlier this week. We'll continue to monitor interest rates to determine the best financing plan for new loan originations this coming fiscal year. That is the report out on Finance Committee on the mortgage activity and servicing portfolio. Any questions on these items?
Does anybody have any questions of Tracy in regard to this? Okay, Tracy, thank you. Excellent report. Sounds really good.
So the next part of the Finance Committee, the committee was then presented with the fiscal June 30, 2025 audit report by Crow LLP partner Brad Shelley. Mr. Shelley is present this afternoon to share the highlights of the audit report with the entire board. The report is in the packet you received and will be scrolled through on your screen during the presentation. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Brad with Crow.
Thanks, Tracy. Good afternoon, directors, and thank you for giving me a few minutes to give you a quick overview of the audit process and kind of where things stand. Before we jump into the details, and I don't plan to go through too many details here. I wanted to focus just on a few significant topics. Wanted to give you kind of a high-level overview of where things are at. So as you'll notice on here, this report does say draft, which if you're familiar with previous years, typically this wouldn't be a draft version, it would be a final. There's actually 3 different versions of the financial statements that we prepare and then finalize, and this one is the draft version. And that sounds bad potentially, what kind of context you view 3 different versions of the financial statements, but I can assure you the basic financial statements with all of the account balances and transactions is the same in all 3 versions. But you do have to submit a version for Ginnie Mae that has some specific schedules in those set of financial statements. Those have been finalized back in late September after the Finance Committee meeting. The basic financial statements themselves, so the actual, I'll call balance sheet, income statement, and footnotes, those were all, that was finalized as well on September 29th. So those 2 versions, good. This version is draft version, and the reason being is that the 2025 compliance supplement that the OMB issues each year, which really drives our single audit testing procedures, that still has not been issued. So they have issued a draft version that we use to perform the testing, but the OMB has not issued the final version, and the AICPA has indicated that public accounting firms should not finalize the single audit reports until the final version of the compliance supplement is issued. So we're kind of here in a standstill with in regards to the single audit reports, which again drive those federal grants. The latest that we have here is obviously the federal government shutdown is hindering that process as well. So we're not expecting that compliance supplement to be issued until at least sometime after the federal government reopens. And of course, nobody knows when that's going to be. So we're kind of hanging on from that standpoint. I will say I don't anticipate any changes to the reports, nor any additional testing will be required. That said, until we see the final version, we can't say with 100% certainty, which is why we're not issuing the report. But we wanted to go ahead and provide that overview to you. We went through this with the Finance Committee and wanted to make you aware of it as well, since this includes both the basic financial statements and the single audit reporting package at the end. So that's the first piece of it. The other piece that I wanted to mention this year, and we can look at the schedules in a minute. Every year we go through and try to reach out to the different federal agencies, whether that's HUD or otherwise, to try to confirm the mortgage guarantee programs and to whether those should be included on your schedule of expenditures of federal awards or not. And the reason why that matters is then if they are included on there, that means they're subject to testing. And oftentimes we have to test at least one of those mortgage guarantee programs. This came up a few years ago. The sam.gov website, which is a federal website that provides information on all the different federal grant programs. It has indicated for several years now that it did not have, those 3 guarantee programs did not have any audit requirements for them. But that's the only place that we could find that. We could never confirm that. Historically, you'd always included those on your CFA, and they'd been subject to testing, even though we felt like didn't necessarily need to. So fast forward to this year, we were able to, we went through the same process, reached out to all 3 federal agencies, and actually all 3 responded in some form. Not all of them could give us a clear answer, but USDA gave us the most clear answer of no, those do not need to be included on your CFA. They're just guarantee programs, so you don't need to include them on there. There's no testing requirements. The VA and HUD had responded and was really not super helpful in providing a clear answer. But with USDA responding and saying that, and knowing that those programs are virtually identical, just slightly different requirements, eligibility requirements, felt pretty comfortable that they did not need to be included. Tracy also confirmed with another housing authority or agency that has similar guarantee programs, that they don't include them on there. And then we did some research and found that there's only about 7 or 8 states, I think, that their housing agency include them on the CFA. The rest of them are not. So we felt pretty comfortable, and management felt pretty comfortable with removing those from the CFA, which then means, again, we don't have to test those, means less work for you all, and means less audit fees, which is always good for you also.
I have a question.
Yeah.
But does that make us vulnerable? I mean, do you know that they're such good programs, run so well, that they don't need to be audited? I'm a little.
So let me say, doesn't mean that they're not part of the overall audit. We just don't have to do specific audit procedures over the eligibility side of that program. So it's still part of the overall audit. It's just not every year, we have to rotate through and test some different programs in more detail, test eligibility, those types of things. So it just means that we don't have to do that level of testing, but it's still, the rest of it's still subject to our testing. The loans or the mortgages are still part of the overall audit testing. So good question. So that's kind of the high level overview of the financial audit process this year. If we jump in, I'll point out just a few things here. If you scroll down to the first report, the independent auditors report, this is really kind of the key report. We are providing unmodified opinion on your financial statements, which includes the government activities, the business type activities, major funds, et cetera there. So a clean audit opinion, no audit adjustments that required any adjusting, and no findings to report there. Then from there, you get into the rest of the financial statements, and really not a lot of changes. There were no new accounting standards this year that required any modifications or new footnote disclosures really that had much impact. There was one new accounting standard related to compensated absences, but that really had a pretty minimal impact on your financial statements. As you can see, it's actually on page 31, I think. If you jump ahead to note B, Sam, I don't know if you're driving or who's driving it, but you'll see the disclosure there around that. There was about a $1 million impact from that disclosure. Yep, right there. So GASB 101, really what that required you to do was to look at your different types of leave, primarily the sick leave, and essentially accrue a little bit more of that. So now the requirement is to accrue any liabilities or accrue a liability for any types of leave that is more likely than not to be either paid out, which was always the case, or potentially used. So you see a slight increase there, but overall a pretty minimal impact on your financial statements. The rest of the financial statements pretty consistent. You ended up this year at about 1.4 billion in assets, compared to about 1.2 last year. Sorry, not billion. I say billion, I think a million. Net position about 519, compared to about 486 last year. So most of the rest of the financial statements pretty consistent. Continued obviously with the issuance of the single family mortgage revenue bonds program. So seeing that reflected in there as well. And then again, as you scroll through, you'll see the single audit section on really starting on page 45, I think. And those draft reports there as well. You went up with about 310 million in federal expenditures during the year. And again, that does not include those mortgage guarantee programs. No findings as you scroll to page 52. So no material weaknesses, significant deficiencies in internal controls, and no issues during that process. The 3 programs that we did test this year are listed there: the Housing Choice Voucher Program, the Homeowner Assistance Program, and then weatherization. So I think that covers everything from the audit standpoint. Again, very clean audit process. It did have, obviously, there's a few things that are changed up a little bit this year, but those are really out of your control. And as soon as the single audit or the compliance supplement is issued, we'll be sure to issue the single audit report and make sure the data collection form gets submitted. But in the meantime, we'll hold tight on that and just wait for that to happen. So at that point, any questions from any of the board members?
Mr. Shelley, I'd just like to make a comment. Very few audits that I see in my world, that do not have a management letter, and you don't have a management letter here, which speaks to the great management of Kentucky Housing Corporation. And we owe them a debt of gratitude for their hard work and their effort to making sure things are done right. So I just want to point that out, that's important consideration, that this audit does not have a management letter.
Yeah, that's a great point. Obviously it is a lot of work, not only preparing for the audit, right? I mean, it takes a lot of time for your team to prepare for the audit. We have, hundreds of requests of information that we ask for, whether it's related to the financial statement audit or a single audit. So it takes a lot of time there, but I mean, most importantly for your all's standpoint, yeah, to have no findings, no management recommendations, that should help you feel more comfortable about what's being reported on a regular basis to you all, as far as monthly financial information, quarterly, and then obviously annual. So definitely appreciate management's hard work on preparing for the audit and doing a good job with having good internal controls in place.
Barry, I noticed you've joined the meeting. Do you have anything you want to add? You or Tracy here? I think Barry's joined.
Might be on mute. I think you're
Okay.
on mute, Barry.
Tracy, do you have anything?
I'll just echo and commend staff. Matthew Razor, our controller, is on the call here, along with Kevin Field, our director of internal audit, and their teams played a big role in getting this done and getting it done very, very well. So I just want to recognize them and their hard work in here. And I will turn it over to Barry to hopefully make a motion.
Yes, I will. But before I do that, I want to echo everything here. Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry I'm a little tardy, but I do. It also echoes the point that we're making here, that Tracy and her staff are doing a fabulous job. She pinch hits for us, does a great job on everything. So I'm greatly appreciative of everything that the staff is doing on the financial side. So with that, I will entertain a motion to accept our recommendations.
Barry needs a motion.
I make a motion. Yes.
I'll second.
And can I just ask, I'm happy to go along, but if it's drafts, are we like approving draft stuff? What are your recommendations, to approve these in draft form? Is that, I'm just asking.
So
that's
that's a good question. If I can chime in, I think that the proper form of the motion should be a motion to accept the audit reports, and we can have that be motion to accept the draft audit reports.
That is correct.
So I don't recall who made the motion. Maybe we could amend the motion.
It was Bill Jones and Rob seconded it.
So, Mr. Jones, are you okay with amending your motion?
I am.
Okay. And the second still stands?
I'm good.
Okay. Go ahead, Barry.
So all those in favor?
Uh,
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, like sign. I think motion passes on that. So greatly appreciate that. And again, I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Chairman, because this concludes our report.
Okay. Thank you, Barry. And Barry, thank you and your committee for your hard work and your diligent work. And Tracy, thank you and your staff. If you would give them the board's appreciation for the hard work that they've done. Thank you all very much. So any other questions at this point of Barry or Tracy? Okay, well, we'll move on then. Okay, so Sam, you want to do the executive committee meeting that was held on September 30th?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So a meeting of the executive committee was held on September 30th. At that meeting, the committee considered and approved the following final bond resolutions. Firstly, Campbellview Apartments. This is a development that's located in Bowling Green. The total bond authority that was approved was $9.2 million for 71 total units, a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. The next development that was approved is the Western Kentucky Recovery Portfolio development. This portfolio includes 6 different developments in Bowling Green, Mayfield, Dawson Springs, Madisonville, and Hopkinsville, and are part of the Western Kentucky Tornado Recovery effort in conjunction with the Department for Local Government. The total bond authority across all of those properties is $49,050,000, and the total number of units to be developed will be 312 new units, a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. Finally, the committee approved a final resolution for the SoCare Northern Kentucky portfolio project. This portfolio is located at scattered sites throughout Northern Kentucky, and total bond authority across all properties that was approved was $25,987,000, and total number of units to be developed will be 216 units, a mixture of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. The committee also considered.
Can I?
Yes, you have a question.
And I don't know that I read that, but are they rental? Are they ownership? Are they?
These are all multifamily rental development projects that are funded with tax exempt bonds.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'm sorry. It just I'm in a haze. Thanks.
No, you're welcome. The committee also considered and approved an inducement resolution for tax-exempt bonds for the Winterwood, Kentucky Portfolio 4 development. This portfolio includes rehabbing existing units at properties in Greenup, Perry, Pike, Floyd, and Knox counties. The total bonding authority is $20 million, and the total number of units to be rehabbed is 171 units. This is a mixture of 1 and 2 bedroom units. Finally, the committee approved changes to the KHC administrative plan for the Housing Choice Voucher Program to allow for a reorganization of the hearing officer duties within the department. That concludes the report of action of the executive committee.
So Sam, do we need a motion for that on that?
No, we do not.
Okay.
It's informational only.
Okay. Any members have any questions of Sam in regard to the executive committee? Okay, thank you, Sam. Sam, you want to go tell us about the KHC pilot program?
Sure.
And just let me say again, it looks like the parameters you set, you've done a wonderful job of working on this, and we certainly appreciate it. So go ahead, Sam.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just to provide some context, as you all recall, at the August meeting, we presented on a potential new payment in lieu of taxes or pilot program that would be offered by KHC. Board members had a number of questions, many of which revolved around the logistics of how the program would operate. Today, I have joining with me Heather Haregrove, who is KHC's Housing Supply Accelerator, along with Luke Morgan to discuss the steps we're taking to put more definition around this program. Heather has significant experience in designing housing programs, and she's going to guide a discussion about some proposed program guidelines, which were included in your packet. In compiling these proposed guidelines, we've reviewed guidelines and program documents from other jurisdictions that administer similar programs. We had a conversation with staff from the Nashville Metropolitan Development Housing Agency, which administers a pilot program, and we had discussions with various other internal staff and external partners in the process of developing these draft guidelines. We are not asking for any action today. This will be informational only to facilitate further discussion among the board. KHC staff are continuing to discuss with internal and external partners before we finalize our proposal, but we wanted to give the board additional time for consideration before we recommend any action. So Heather is going to walk you through the proposed guidelines, and we've got a PowerPoint for you to do that.
Thanks, Sam. Yes, so as Sam mentioned, you all should have in your board packet a document that says KHC pilot program at the top of it. And so this presentation, basically each slide is going to go through each section of that. And if y'all have any questions along the way, feel free to jump in. So Sam, you control in a second. Yeah. Okay, so the overview of this program is that KRS 198A.200 allows KHC to have property tax exemption on any property that is owned by the corporation. KHC may agree to pay in lieu of taxes a negotiated amount with the local government. So KHC has developed this KHC pilot program to allow developers to access KHC's tax exemption and reduce the annual operating expenses for any affordable housing multifamily developments that are 10 units or more. KHC plans to take ownership of properties via transfer of title and enter into a ground lease with developers. In doing so, the developers will receive the benefit of KHC's property tax exemption subject to a pilot negotiated by the developer with the local government. The eligible applicants for this are going to be for-profit entities and nonprofit entities without tax exemption. Eligible developments will be 9% and 4% tax credit projects that have tax-exempt bonds, multifamily only. They have to have at least 10 new rental units, and the developers will have to show that they have a financial need and demonstrate proof that the financial viability of this development is dependent on the tax abatement in the pilot. The income limits are going to be limited to up to 80% AMI, which will go until the end of the tax credit compliance period. After the 30-year tax credit compliance period, we're contemplating the idea that the property, if we were to continue to hold ownership at that point, that the property could revert to 120% AMI until the end of the ground lease term. The form of assistance on this is going to be a ground lease, which will to convey the property tax abatement subject to the approval of the pilot with the local taxing authority. All properties will be deed restricted to lock in the affordability during the term of the ground lease. And that deed restriction will also be transferable if the property were to be sold to somebody else. Any sales of the development have to be approved by KHC before that can happen. So the term of the ground lease, right now we're saying is going to be determined on a case-by-case basis. We plan on having conversations with multiple parties to kind of find out if there's a general preference on this. At a minimum, it's going to at least be for the term of the tax credit compliance period. It could be for up to 99 years. So this is still up for discussion. The application and the closing process, what we envision is that the developers We'll have to have site control, which this is normal for any development that's coming in and applying to KHC for multifamily tax credits. So they have to have site control either in ownership or an option to purchase. They will need to negotiate the pilot with the local government, which will be subject to receiving the funding award from KHC. Once they have both of those, then they will apply to KHC for the multifamily financing. And within that application, they will request that KHC take ownership of the land via transfer of title, should they be awarded funding. They will be required to provide us with two pro formas, one that's going to show without the pilot and the tax abatement, the other with the pilot and tax abatement. The developer, assuming that they score high enough, they will be awarded funding. And once they get to the construction closing, at that time, KHC will take ownership via the transfer of title, and we will also simultaneously enter into a ground lease with the developer. Again, the length of the ground lease may be determined on a case-by-case basis. Ground leases will not be subordinate to any lending. So for insurance requirements, we're going to be requiring that they have to have all of the normal insurance that KHC requires for other programs. They're going to have to show that they have proof of property insurance with the coverage amount equal to the full value of the property. They're going to have to provide proof that KHC has been named as an additional insured through an insurance certificate provided to the closing. If the insurance should be reduced, terminated, or elapsed coverage, KHC has to be notified 30 days in advance. They're also going to have to provide title insurance. So the compliance is going to run concurrent with KHC's tax credit compliance monitoring. When KHC conducts the compliance for tax credit or any other programmatic purposes, KHC will also conduct monitoring on the status of compliance with the lease terms. At any point, if the property should not be in compliance, then at that point, the ownership will transfer back to the developer, and which will also cause them to lose the property tax benefit. We do intend to charge fees. All of them are to be determined at this point, but we anticipate charging an application fee, asset management fee, closing fee. In addition to that, the developer will be paying the pilot payment to KHC, and KHC will remit that pilot payment to the local government each year. The developer will do some annual reporting to KHC. So as of December 31st of each year, they need to provide us with the assessed value of the property for the development only. This can be, if they're able to get it from the county tax assessor's office, that would be preferable. If they're not able to, then we would like for them to estimate what they anticipate that value would be. They need to provide us with the annual property tax abatement, the annual pilot fee, the estimated property tax savings to the development, and in addition, they also need to provide us with an annual evidence of general liability insurance renewals. KHC will do a report to the board annually. So that report we anticipate will be in April. KHC will provide a list of real and personal property owned as of December 31st of the previous calendar year that have, for any properties that have ground lease. It's going to show the assessed land value and development value of the property as estimated by the county tax assessor's office. We will provide the pilot fee for each property, the estimated property tax savings to the entire property, which will be the ground plus the development, the date and term of the lease for each property, the date each property is scheduled to return to the regular tax rolls, and the number of affordable units and AMI limits. And that concludes this discussion of that. So do you all have any questions that you'd like to talk about?
Well, of course I do. And it's just, I'm all in favor, but so the 30-year but the ground lease would run longer than that because banks like it too. I get that. how do we monitor that? Let's say it's 35 years, that 5 years to make sure that everything, do we have to go out to the property? Do we do as much as we do during the 30 years? Do you know what I'm asking? After the 30-year low-income housing tax credit term is over, but there's additional ground lease, how do we monitor how do we monitor that?
I think go ahead.
And my
Well,
second question, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to chime in, Kathy. It's a good question. This is new for us, right? To have anything that goes beyond 30 years. So what we would do probably is, at a minimum, require reporting, ensuring that they're serving folks at 120% AMI or below, because that would be, well, no, the ground lease would, yeah, that would be what would be required after the tax credit compliance period. So at a minimum, we would require a desk monitoring. I don't know if we would go out. It's very expensive to send stuff out across the state. So I don't know if we go do physical inspections in those 5 years or not. We haven't figured that out.
So how do we ensure that the property is properly cared for? That, just throwing that out, because it's all new territory. And my second question is really because I don't understand a lot of things about this, but how would our ownership affect our audit? Like, wouldn't we be shown to have like gobs of millions of dollars of property we own? And how does that get offset by, like, so that it all evens out? I mean, other people have faced this. I'm just asking, so there must be ways to do that. I'm just asking.
Kathy, I'll take that question. The answer right now is I'm not sure yet, but I actually have asked Brad Shelley to stay for this presentation, so I can work with the auditor as to how we would treat this on the books.
And I just want to say I'm so glad to see that it is for affordable housing, rental housing, because like Nashville, they built a stadium. They're not exactly they don't operate the same way we do. They are much more expansive. So I'm glad to see that this is only for housing and for the affordable rental. So thank you.
Anyone
So,
else
Mr.
have any
Shelley, do
questions?
you have any comments in regard to her question?
I don't yet, because this is the first time I'm seeing it, other than Tracy sent it to me just a few minutes before the meeting. So I don't have a lot of comments. I know I had sent some questions over to Tracy just initially, and she responded back on those. So we'll have to talk through a little bit more on how it would be reflected, and once we see the agreements, we can further assess, how it would be accounted for. But I mean, my initial thought is just, if it's purely a ground lease and all that you own is the property, then that's a little bit easier to account for. We'd have to apply GASB 87 and look at the lease agreement and see how it needs to show up there as far as a leased asset and a lease receivable. But beyond that, until we see a little bit more, I was asking, I mean, not to get too far off the thing here, but from my experience with another housing agency that we used to work with, theirs was a little bit different of a setup, where they actually had an ownership in the low-income housing tax credit entity, which then created, I'll just say, a lot more work. But it doesn't sound like that's the structure that you're planning to go down. So it's just a ground lease, should be fairly straightforward, I think.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, speaking with Sam a little bit for this, also, just given the timing of this and how long it will take to actually get to a close, this likely will not impact fiscal year 2026. So we have some time to figure this out.
Okay. Also, Kathy, I might, if I could just chime in, in my experience with pilot programs from an industrial development point of view, I have never seen one that didn't match. I think the 35 years is just a little extra in case you do have a 35-year loan, probably. I think that's just a little added convenience. But most of them are, everyone I've ever seen match with the maturity date of the loan. Okay. So for whatever that's worth. Sam, you have anything else you want to add to this?
It's not directly related to these program guideline drafts that we've been talking about, but I've got Luke Morgan on the call as well. We have been working on developing, well, they have been working, and I'm currently reviewing draft lease agreement and pilot agreement. So that is also in process.
And I just want to be clear. I think KHC is innovative and meticulous. So I have every bit of confidence that everything will be solved. And you've presented it as it's just, this is where we are right now, and we're still working on it. I don't have a negative view towards this. Anything that will help, and we're desperate for ways to fund housing. So thank you.
Absolutely, Kathy. And to your point, we want to get this right. This is something that's new, and we want to make sure that KHC does this the right way and is protected, but while trying to be as innovative as we can with the authority that we've been given by the legislature. So that's why we are taking a slower, cautious approach to this.
So any other members have any questions of Sam in regard to this? Sam, do you or Mr. Morgan or Ms. Hargrove have anything you want to add here?
I don't. I suspect that we will bring this back to the December meeting. Either, if we feel like we are at a spot where we can finalize this, we will make a recommendation. If not, then we'll just provide you with an update.
Well, thank you all. On behalf of the board, thank you all so much for your hard work, Mr. Morgan, Ms. Hargrove, and Sam, and the other management team for working so hard on this. I'm like Kathy. I hope it helps. So, all right.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you for your trust.
If no other members have any questions, we'll move on to Terry Helton. Terry, you want to talk about Shawnee Renaissance Apartments?
Yes. Yes, thank you. Excuse me. Good afternoon. This is an extension resolution for the Shawnee Renaissance Apartments that's located in Louisville for 177 units. So they currently are seeking to amend the bond financing agreement to extend the outside conversion date from November 1st of 2025 to February 1st of 2026, and the commencement of the amortization from December 1st, 2025 to March 1st, 2026. The reason they are requesting this is there is a required document from HUD that they need for that conversion to perm loan. And unfortunately, right now with the shutdown, they are unable to obtain that. So we're just needing to extend this for a little bit.
So moved.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Okay, Terry, Park Hills.
Yes. Today is the final resolution for Park Hill Algonquin Acres located in Louisville. They've sought for inducement resolution on February of 2025 for a bond authority in the amount of $43,498,122. This final resolution is for the same amount. They did receive their TAFRA hearing on October 16th of 2025, and they have been to the State Property Building Commission as well as the Capital Projects and Bond Oversight Committee. This project involves the acquisition and new construction of 233 units located on South 11th Street in Louisville, and they will serve 40 households at or below 30% AMI, 37 households at or below 50% AMI, 45 households at or below 60% AMI, and 111 households at or below 70%. The 233 units will consist of 81 bedroom units, 105 two-bedroom units, and 48 three-bedroom units. Your development team is listed on your screen and in your packet. KHC staff does recommend approval by the Board of Directors of KHC for this final resolution for the issuance of bonds for Park Hill Algonquin Acres.
So moved.
Already have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Terry. We appreciate your hard work and your effort
Thank
on
you.
this.
Now, Terry, don't you wish everything was that easy?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
So we'll move on to informational items. Winston, I'm sure you have some things you want to talk about.
We have a couple of items that we would like to address. We'll take them sort of one at a time. The first one is the impact of the government shutdown on Kentucky housing programs and other programs that interface with us. And I think Wendy and perhaps with some input from Sam are going to bring us up to date there. Wendy?
Sure. Thanks, Winston. Good afternoon, everybody. I will say that right now, the shutdown is impacting us in very small ways. The thing we worried most about was being able to pay rents in November and December. And we know we can pay all the rents for Section 8 vouchers and our project-based, contract-based Section 8 for November. And we feel pretty confident we're going to be able to cover December for all of those as well. January is a cliff that we jump off of if the shutdown continues and there haven't been some interim, funding mechanisms. That is a relief for staff and our tenants and our landlords. So I'm happy to report that. Most of our programs that we are currently running are actually operating on federal fiscal years that are 1 or 2 years ago because it can take HUD so very long to get that money out the door. So our programs are all functioning. We are able to draw, for the most part, on all of our funds. Where we run a risk is that if we require someone on the side of HUD to approve a thing, click a button, review an environmental review, we are seeing some slowdowns or issues there. None of it is impeding our work yet, but the longer this goes, of course, the more likely it is that that's going to happen. I'll leave it there in case Sam wants to add anything else.
I don't have anything further to add. I don't know when it's going to end or when there's going to be a resolution of this. All I have is, the news articles that I'm sure you all have been reading as well. But I agree with Wendy's assessment. It's been more administrative issues up to this point. So we will certainly keep you posted if any of that changes.
Does anybody have any questions about the impact which Wendy and Sam have just covered from our perspective, or any comments?
Just a comment. I appreciate you all being on top of it and watching it daily. So thank you for that.
It is watched daily, and it's a topic of conversation among our employees here and among other HFAs around the country. This past few days, I've been conferring with other HFAs from the southeastern part of the United States, and they've got the very same questions and the very same concerns that we have. Although, frankly, I think we've been a little bit more assured that we will have funding that some of them were still in doubt about whenever we talked on Monday and Tuesday. Hopefully that has changed. The second informational item that we'd like to inform you about is a anticipated or a possible policy change, which if implemented by HUD, could significantly adversely impact our homeless programs. And Wendy is going to take us through this is a little bit complex, but I think she can lay the foundation for following along with what the impact of this might be. Wendy?
And I'll be happy to answer questions where it's too convoluted or I haven't made it clear enough. So we are letting you all know this is not a definite thing that is happening. It is based on a Politico article. They have done several articles. They must have some contacts at HUD who are willing to share things off the record about coming policy changes. Many of them have come to be. And this one would impact our continuum of care, which is the network of shelter and service providers across the state that help people who are experiencing homelessness. So if we'll go to the next slide, Sam. So I'm just going to try to ground this just to remind you all of the structure of how these funds flow from HUD. HUD's Office of Special Needs Assistance Programs, or HUD SNAPS, does a competitive nationwide application for continuum of care funding. It used to be an every year application. You might imagine we do this with roughly 30 partners, and we have to roll everything up into an application of applications. It's an enormous amount of work, and a lot of it is renewal. So Congress recently decided that it would be a 2-year cadence instead of an every year cadence, which is great. So in Kentucky, we have 3 continua of care that compete for the HUD dollars for homelessness: Lexington, Fayette, Louisville, Jefferson, and then the balance of state, the rest of the state, 118 counties. And we at KHC are effectively the administrating agency, the collaborative applicants. We do a lot of planning, a lot of trainings, and data collection and reporting for the continuum of care. Next slide. There are a lot of activities covered by this funding, everything from homeless prevention, street outreach, services. A little bit can go to emergency shelter. The dominant amount of our dollars go to items 5 and 6, rapid rehousing and permanent supportive housing. Those are effectively uses akin to Section 8 vouchers, where we are paying rent assistance to get people housed so that their homelessness is brief and non-recurring, and they're more likely to keep their car, keep their job, keep their kids if they can get housed, and then if they need services, also get services to let them stay housed, deal with substance use disorder, mental illness, any other issues they might be having. We also do get some funds in that second list, which they don't all come to KHC, but a lot of them do, which is really to support the continuum of care and do the reporting, data collection, and administrative work. Next slide. And just to remind you all, year over year homelessness in Kentucky, this isn't just the balance of state, is going up. These numbers are an undercount for sure. It represents one night in January when we count across the state. So the numbers don't represent a true count, but the trend does represent what's going on. And what you can see is that homelessness has been increasing since 2022. Next slide. And within these counts, I really want to point you to these numbers, which are unsheltered homelessness. So if you're in a shelter, you're not considered unsheltered. You're still homeless, but you are in a shelter. This count is people who are in cars, in tents, on the streets, in places that aren't meant for human habitation. And I really would like for you to note what's going on in the balance of state. In the last 2 years, we have seen radical for us, increases in unsheltered, effectively street, car, tent homelessness. And this is again, an undercount, but the trend is accurate. We simply do not have shelters across the state to house everyone who's experiencing homelessness. Next slide. Okay, so now what are the anticipated changes that are really worrying us? And again, these were published in a late September Politico article. And the link is here. Sam can get you these slides if you want them. But here are the changes that are worrying KHC, but really Louisville, Lexington, and all of our shelter and service providers that utilize these funds. So first is that there is a proposal to truncate the grant period so that instead of being 2 years, it's 1 year, and it would expire this December. And there would need to be a reapplication for grants to resume January 1. You can imagine with this shutdown, it's really contorting that. And maybe it won't happen that quickly. It will happen later next year. What this means is we would have to reapply for funds we've already applied for, right? Because it's supposed to be a 2-year cycle. They're now making it just a 1-year cycle. So We have to do that again. We can do that. We're up to the task. We can make that happen. The most concerning part is element number 2, which is that they are going to slash the amount of funding that can be used for permanent housing. There's anticipated to be a cap of only 30% of the total continuum of care funds that were awarded can be used for permanent housing, for rapid rehousing or permanent supportive housing. I'll show you later what that means for Kentucky and the balance of state. It will result in a lot of vulnerable Americans, not being able to pay rent and losing their housing. Number 3, which is related to that, is that this limit of 30% is so that there can be a shift to prioritize transitional housing and treatment first models that require you to get clean before you get housed, get a job before you get housed, whatever the issues someone decides, you have to do that before you get to have housing. It doesn't take a lot of thinking to understand that it's probably easier to deal with any of your personal issues if you're housed, versus being unsheltered. And HUD has previously, for a long time, deprioritized transitional housing and treatment first models because they end up costing more because people cycle in and out a lot more, and they just don't have great long-term outcomes. And then lastly, there is a proposal to change how we're funded. So instead of being funded based on our performance and how well we address homelessness and keep people stably housed, it would just be it could become just a formula-based calculation, either based on population or your homelessness count. And so our numbers would go way down. We, as a continuum of care, we get a lot as a rural state. We successfully compete for a lot of funds. So that's a lot. I'm going to tell you about the impacts. Does anyone have a question before I move on to share with you what this means for Kentucky?
So, Wendy, it's Bill. So I don't know if this is where I interject, but the video that that Winston provided us,
yeah,
which I watched as instructed, and glad I did. It was very, very educational, very informative. So their proposal here flies in the face of what that study or that documentary has proven out. And I forget the cities where it's been tested.
Houston and Milwaukee, I think, were the 2 cities.
Okay, so I don't know. I just seems like it was appropriate for me to interject that here. I don't know that means anything, but
it does. I mean, I really appreciate you making that connection. And there are lots of, database studies that also bear out that, getting people housed quickly and not letting them slip into, you all could imagine that if you spend a lot of time being homeless, particularly street homeless, if you weren't mentally ill, you're real likely to become mentally ill because you experience a lot of traumas and humiliations. And so just keeping people tethered to their regular life, their job, their kids, their family, keeping their bills paid, it is so much better to be housed and then try to address whatever personal pathologies you may or may not have. So let's go on and talk about what it means for Kentucky. And again, these are projections because we do not have a clear, communication from HUD about this. So we're projecting. But the proposed 30% cap on permanent housing, and this is for the whole state, not just KHC's 118 counties, it could lead to the elimination of rent assistance for almost 1,600 units, which represents over 2,600 beds because they often have 2-3 bedrooms, in them. And those are all currently occupied by formerly homeless people with a disability. We prioritize rent assistance for those folks. It would translate to a loss of 58% of the dollars that are spent in Kentucky on permanent housing, which is roughly $20 million. And I'll show you, there's a slide. The next slide shows a table. So if you look at the federal fiscal year 25 permanent housing renewal amount, it's 34 million and change is how much we would expect to get in January. If the 30% cap is applied, we'll be limited to a little over 14 million to spend on permanent housing, which is a loss of $20 million across the state. 58% that we currently expend on permanent housing. You all can imagine how just phenomenally disruptive this would be. On the next slide, we have a list of the oh, sorry, I'm sorry.
Wendy,
yeah.
The first column, I think I know what it means, but would you
sure
define
so the
that?
First column is the 48 million is how much we expect to get in continuum of care renewal. So what you can see is we spend most of our continuum of care money, 34 million out of 48 million, on permanent housing, on just getting people housed and trying to keep them housed and keep them from re-entering homelessness. We would be expected to reduce that by $20 million.
So I don't want to get in the weeds, but would another state maybe have a lower percentage that they would be spending today on permanent housing?
Yeah, it's possible. It all depends on their array of partners, what they have focused on. You know, it's so when we make this annual competitive application bill to HUD, again, we have our overall application and some funds for KHC, and then we have like 20 to 30 different individual projects. More than one might go to the same provider, so it might be for street outreach, rapid rehousing, maybe emergency shelter. It's a range of things. So the percentage could be a little different in different states. It all depends on what their array of partners have gone after.
Okay, thank you.
We can go to the next slide.
Can I just add though, because but the permanence of permanent supportive housing, people not falling back into being homeless, it's at 71% success rate. That doesn't mean people aren't drinking, or it means they have successfully been renters and housed, and in their time a portion of people also get help and are stable, but everybody's stabilized. I can't think of another program with a 71% success rate.
Well put, Kathy.
Yes. So other states may allocate differently, but I can't imagine they have the success rate of keeping people out of being homeless. I just wanted to add that.
Right. And I don't want to make light of the fact that there are issues and problems that really make people far more likely to become homeless. Substance use disorder, disability, mental disability, domestic split, unemployment. What I know though is that the way to solve for homelessness is to house folks and then help them address whatever other things need to be addressed. So we're all in favor of supportive services. And we don't have a lot of funds for that. We'd love to have more, but we really don't want to push people into homelessness and then offer them services. That just seems counterintuitive when we're trying to solve for homelessness.
Which was back to the point of the documentary. They've got to be linked together.
Yeah. This is just a list of our partners that receive funding for rapid rehousing and permanent supportive housing, those two things that would be cut. I'm just wanting to let you all know it goes all across the state. This does not include Lexington and Louisville partners. I'm really just speaking to the balance of state right now for this. I don't have their lists. We don't oversee their grants, but it's a lot of organizations is what I'm trying to get at. And then if we can go to the next slide, which may be our last slide, this is just to give you a sense of by congressional district or area development district, there's multiple grants for rapid rehousing or permanent supportive housing that go to these different areas, to assist renters. And I think that's my last slide, Sam.
To sort of summarize, we don't know where this is going, but we've been able to observe what this administration has done with a lot of other federal programs that they've expressed some disfavor with, and we know that they have expressed disfavor with many of the approaches that homeless providers have been taking over the last several years, which, as Kathy pointed out, by and large have been successful, and this would undermine that. We're watching and listening to what HUD what they say and what happens. We're also in touch with similar organizations to ours and organizations that actually provide the assistance on the street, so to speak, and we will keep you all informed of developments. We're not, again, this is an informational item. We're not asking for a call to action or a vote on anything, but we wanted to make you all informed about it so that if it does develop as we fear, it doesn't happen as a shock. And with that, Mike, that's the two informational items that we had for today. And we do have a December meeting on the calendar. Sam, what is the date of that?
December 11th.
So we hope to see you all then. At this point, Sam, do we have any sense as to how long that agenda might be and whether or not it'll be an in-meeting or a virtual meeting?
We do not yet. I'll get clarity on that in a few weeks.
Okay.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, I was curious at the December meeting, Winston or Wendy or Sam, do you think with the legislature going back in session after the first year, and I know housing is one of the targeted areas, do you think you'll have a sense for what they may be proposing?
We hope so. They're scheduled to meet in a couple of weeks, and it's at that meeting that they very well could announce what their proposed legislative plan is. It's also possible that gets deferred and hung up within the organization of the Senate and the House in terms of the leadership there and what they're willing to endorse. But we're anticipating that the task force will make some recommendations for some changes, and we just don't know what those are going to be at this point in time. When did you or Sam want to add to that?
Well, only that we aim to give you all at least what our preview is, what we do know at the December board meeting, because we may have a better sense of what's likely to get introduced. So stay tuned, Bill, and don't steal my thunder.
I'll be interested to see the impact on both rental and ownership when the refusal to keep funding SNAP, although the money can be found, people's insurance goes up, and in Louisville, our utilities, in order to build these monstrosities of data centers, the utility costs are going to go up. But I don't know how people are going to be able to afford to buy, and I anticipate the lowest income people losing food assistance, the middle income people losing health care assistance, what it's going to do to worsen our housing crisis. So if you keep your spidey senses alert, I'd be interested in what happens when we meet in December.
Good observation. I don't know. I wish I had a crystal ball and could see, although maybe I'm better off that I don't.
Does the interest rate cut yesterday, or does that impact loans and things like that? Or does it yet?
I'll let Tracy speak to that.
Sure. I mean, for the most part, a lot of that's already been kind of embedded in pricing in the market. So I don't think it's going to impact rates immediately. They may come down, but it's been fairly steady for quite some time. So where it's going to impact us more quickly is our borrowing rates and our yields on some of our investments.
Okay, thank you.
So Winston, do you have anything else you want to talk about?
Mike, we're happy to take any other questions that any of the board members have or listen to any comments or observations that they have. But I think from our perspective, that sort of wraps this up until, from a board perspective, until December.
I have one thing I'd like to thank the staff, especially Wendy and Terry and Winston and Sam. I know you all worked very hard on this Sutton's Landing up here in Mason County, which I had nothing to do with, didn't even know it was happening until it was done. But that has been embraced by this community. And I just, I know, Terry, I think you're speaking next week at the ribbon cutting. And I just wanted to thank you all. And speaking of homelessness, Wendy, you and Terry can address this, but this is a one of a kind situation, and it just shows your all's commitment to resolving some of this homelessness problem. So, for whatever it's worth, I wanted to thank you all, and if you all want to speak to it, feel free. Wendy, you or Terry.
Mike, I'll just share for the rest of the board that project represents what's called permanent supportive housing. It's the result of with some of our ARPA dollars, brought in a great consultant, the Corporation for Supportive Housing, which is a nonprofit technical assistance provider, to do a 5-month training course with developers, property managers, and service providers. Because doing permanent supportive housing is not just building a rental property. It's not like our tax credit properties. These are folks that needs intensive services. You have to design for durability. You have to have on-site security, on-site services, and have to be very mindful about how you handle really tricky behaviors to keep people housed, but not, risk safety. And so we're really excited to see it happen. It's the kind of housing that keeps the folks who are hardest to house and hardest to keep housed. It's the kind of housing that keeps them stable.
Thank you, Wendy. Terry, you want to say anything about it?
Well, I've been on this project since it came in at application, and I'm really excited to see it. It's, to watch it come in as on a piece of paper to what it is now. So it's really heartwarming. It's just why we do what we do. So I'm really excited. I hope to see you there at the ribbon cutting.
I'm gonna try to be there. Well, thank you all so very much. Okay, for whatever it's worth, I appreciate it. Appreciate your effort on it. Okay, do any other board members or staff have anything they want to talk about today? Bring up? Any questions? Well, if not, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So
Need a
moved.
motion. Okay, got a motion, a second?
Second.
And got a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. You all be careful of those ghosts and goblins out there tonight and tomorrow. But thank you all for attending.
And have a happy Thanksgiving.
Right.
Absolutely. Thank you all.
See you in December.
Thank you.